Hey y'all, welcome back to our very bookish channel. In today's video, in case you didn't notice by the title or the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about our most anticipated book releases of May and June, and I am so very excited. I feel like I always get excited for these videos, but it's just exciting to talk about the new books coming out and to kind of plan on reading them and picking them up in the stores or the library, and just so excited for these videos. So I hope you all enjoy, and I will have timestamps in the description below, so you can skip forward to any books that you're particularly interested in if you don't want to watch the whole video, because these videos can get very long. Jen and I both talk about all the books we are excited for releases, and they can get long, and I understand that. So if you want to jump ahead to any specific books, feel free to use the timestamps in the description below.
Hey guys, and welcome to our most anticipated for May and June. I have, as usual, a ton of books to go over. There are a lot I am personally looking forward to. We have some planned for vlogs and ARC reviews that we will be doing, as well as just touching base on some that are coming out that we've already done the ARC review for. So May and June, I feel like, are huge months for books that are coming out, especially headed into summer. So let's dig into it. So speaking of books we've already read and done ARC reviews or vlogs for, May 6th has two books that we have previously read in vlogs. One is Parents' Weekend by Alex Finley. Me and Amanda both enjoyed this one a lot. It's a very fast-paced thriller. She can link that vlog into this video, so you can check that out with more of our thoughts on that one. And of course, one of our favorites, Frida McFadden, has a new book, The Tenant. We did read that, I feel like, a while ago at this point, but it does come out May 6th. As usual, Frida brings all the plot twists to this, and I'm looking forward. There's something coming out in June that I will get to by Miss Frida McFadden. Those two books are coming out May 6th, both The Tenant and Parents' Weekend. So you definitely want to check those out. And Amanda can have the video linked into this video so you can check out more thoughts on that one.
So starting off on May 6th, I have His Face is the Sun by Michelle Habe Corpora. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Probably not, but that is my very best attempt. And I have started reading this. I do have this art. I think I'm about 20% into this book, and I'm really liking it so far. So what got me interested in this book was a description. It says Ancient Egyptian Trilogy for fans of Leigh Bardugo and Sarah J. Maas. So this is book one of a trilogy, and I love Leigh Bardugo, and I also like Sarah J. Maas, so I thought this sounded interesting. The plot reminded me a lot of Five Broken Blades, which I really was interested in and tried to read, but I didn't like. So I'm really hoping that this book will help redeem that plot, because I really did like that synopsis, and I'm very curious to see how this is going to end. And so far the writing has been very good. There are 4 different POVs you're following, those 4 characters that are going to come together and save this community. So I'm not very far in the book, but so far I'm liking it, and I'll probably talk about it when we do our quarterly 2 wrap up.
The first most anticipated book that I'm going over is called Overgrowth, and it's by Mira Grant. It comes out May 6th, and it's classified as horror, and it's about Anastasia Miller. Since she's been 3 years old, she's been telling anyone who would listen that she's an alien disguised as a human being. No one has believed her. Now an alien signal is being broadcast, and humanity realizes they had been warned. Anastasia's family is coming back for her, and it just seemed really interesting, and the cover looked interesting as well. Nothing like I have necessarily read before, so I thought I would give this one a try. I do have the electronic ARC. I guess I should stop and say ARC is advanced reading copy. There are both electronic ebook versions of ARCs as well as physical ARCs. And this time for May and June, I don't have as many physical ARCs, but I do have a couple. I have a lot of electronic arcs that I hopefully will get to. This being one of them. I don't know if I'll get to it in time to do an arc review, but I do plan on reading this one. We'll see.
Also coming out on May 6th is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. And this book seemed intriguing to me. It's described as a dystopian romance series, and this is book 1 of the series. So you're following Darlington, and Darlington is a psychic, and in her world, the continent that she lives on, that's the name of her world, the continent, they're described as mods. Anyone that has any special abilities are mods. And the rulers see these mods as a threat to their rule. So the mods are murdered, basically. They're put to death if they're discovered. And she's been very careful with her ability. She's a very strong psychic. She has been helping the rebels a little bit. But one day she does something that draws the attention of the enemy. And instead of killing her, which it doesn't tell you a lot of information, but it says that instead of killing her, they force her to enter into a training camp of theirs. So she has to go through this rigorous training. I'm not sure if it's because they know she's a mod and they're forcing her to help them, or if it's because they don't know she's a mod and they think, oh, well, she could be valuable somehow, so we'll force her to go through this training. Not sure about that front. After she's captured and has to enter into this training camp, the romance starts to bloom, and her, I guess, missions become blurred because she starts to fall for her commanding officer, the irresistibly handsome Cross Redden. So that sounded fun, and it's the first book of a series, so I am looking forward to that one. Also, y'all, I have my TBR jar here, and I'm going to be just adding my little pieces of paper as I go through these, instead of doing a big list at the end and then adding them all. I'm just going to do it as they go. So I am putting Silver Elite here in my TBR jar, and next month, Jen and I will be picking our most anticipated releases out of our TBR jars to find some ones to read. We usually just do one, sometimes we do 2, but stay tuned for that next month, and we will be reading one of our most anticipated books.
The next one's called The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers, also coming out May 6th. It's about 2 women haunted by their sister's disappearance, and they band together in this captivating mystery. 7 years after their sister's disappearance, they decide once and for all to try and solve the mystery, even though the only clues they have is that one other woman disappeared under very similar circumstances 2 weeks prior to their sister disappearing. So Ashley Flowers, I did read a book by her before, and I did enjoy that. I believe Ashley Flowers has her own podcast, and she does like true crime things, if I'm remembering correctly. I didn't make a note, so hopefully I'm not wrong about that. I can always put it on the screen if I'm right or wrong about that. But I remember enjoying her other one, and this is her second novel. They're not connected at all as far as I know. But I am looking forward to reading this one. I may not get to this one though until May, because there's just way too much on my plate for April. Since we're not doing a vlog on this, most likely you'll hear if I read this or not during our next quarterly review.
May 13th is a book I am so excited for, and I actually have the arc, and I am so embarrassed to admit I've not read it yet, but that's The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I love grimdark fantasy. He is known for his grimdark fantasy, and this book sounds fun. I'm just going to read a little blurb. This is book 1 of a series. It says, a brand new epic fantasy from New York Times bestselling author Joe Abercrombie, featuring a notorious band of anti-heroes on a delightfully bloody and raucous journey. I didn't need to see more. I don't need to know more. I'm going to read this book. I hope to read it before May 13th when it comes out, so I can post an arc review for you all. But I've just had other things I've had to read, but I really am chomping at the bit to get to this book. I really want to read it soon.
The next one is a new paperback thriller coming out May 13th. It's called The Marriage Rule by Helen Monks Takar. And this is about Elle struggling 9 months into motherhood and balancing work, her post-baby body, and with her husband, even though he's attentive and hands-on. Elle ends up turning to a charismatic co-worker, and she also turns to wine. Already, I feel like this might end up being an unreliable narrator, but one night she wakes up bleary-eyed in a hotel room next to a man who's not her husband, and he's dead. So it sounds like it might be a plot twisty mystery thriller that is right up my alley. So I'm definitely going to check that one out.
May 13th is a big day, y'all, because also on May 13th is A Curse Carved in Bone by Daniel L. Jensen. This is the second book in the saga of the Unfated duology, so the final book. The first book was A Fate Inked in Blood, and I really enjoyed that book, so I am highly anticipating this release. I have been looking everywhere for ARCs, electronic ARCs or physical ARCs available of this book, and there are none, so I just don't think they released any ARCs. I'm just gonna read a little blurb because if you didn't read the first book, the second book will be a spoiler, but it says, a shield maiden fights to break the shackles of prophecy and to overcome the betrayal of the man who broke her heart in this searing conclusion to the Norse-inspired fantasy romance duology that began with the best-selling A Fate Inked in Blood. So that's all I need to say about that. If you haven't read A Fate Inked in Blood, you need to go check that book out, look up the description, see if it's something you're interested in. It was a really fun romantasy. It made me interested in reading her other series, which I have not read, but I noticed other people have picked up that series and have been talking about it, so it might be something I consider reading in the future, but I'm really highly anticipating the conclusion to this duology coming out.
The next is a debut fiction. It's called Sleep by Honor Jones and comes out May 13th. It follows Margaret, a woman learning to co-parent after divorce, also balancing a relationship with her mom. It follows the dichotomy of being a mother and reconciling that with the child within and your family that you grew up with. So the way I read this description is it's someone who is struggling with being a mom, but also tied to original family that you grow up with and the two families and how you reconcile the fact that you are almost like two different people and you want to give your time and energy to both. It sounded really interesting and I thought I would give it a try.
May 20th, The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gielig. This was a 5-star read for me. That's all I'm going to say about it. If you want more details, then you'll have to check out my ARC review video, which I have already posted.
May 20th seems to be a big day. There's another new book May 20th, and it's called The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gielig. Amanda already read this one. I'm sure she'll either mention it briefly or she can link her ARC review so you can see her thoughts on it. I really wanted to get to it before it comes out May 20th. I don't know if I'll have a chance to. I am a huge fan of Rachel's after I read One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. That duology just really grasped me. I like how she writes. I thought it was very original. It was very creative. I loved reading that world that she built. This one sounded equally as captivating. It's about a prophetess who is forced beyond where she knows her safety to be. And she goes on an impossible quest to defeat the gods. And she is along on the journey with someone that she feels forced to be with, is what it sounds like. But Amanda can probably explain it better since she's already read it, or you can also click on her ARC review. But I very much look forward to reading another book by Rachel Gielig. There is a book coming out that I did an ARC review for. It's by Sarah Pemborough and it's called We Live Here Now. Amanda, of course, can link, hopefully. I know she has a limit of how many she can link, but it's on our page too. There's an ARC review I did for this book and I really loved it. It's coming out with a sprayed edge version. It looked really cool. I'll have it on the screen. And this one is like a horror thriller. I only read 2 other books by Sarah Pemborough, but they stuck with me. She has a very interesting, not just writing style, but I feel the way she writes her books and plots, they're just different and captivating in my opinion. The 2 other books that I read by her are Behind Her Eyes. They did a Netflix, either movie or series on that, and I didn't watch it, I just read the book. And also Insomnia, but Insomnia I wasn't as much of a fan of. This one, I really liked it. I got sucked into it, but you can see all my thoughts in the ARC review that you can find on our page, or Amanda will have it linked below. The next one, I have a physical ARC copy. It's called Sike, and the color purple alone is really striking in my opinion, and this cover. So this is about a woman who ends up getting an AI therapist, and I feel a lot of the plots now are involving artificial intelligence more and more and more. And the new season of Black Mirror just came out. And I know I bring up Black Mirror a lot on this channel, but I feel like Black Mirror is like modern day Twilight Zone. Interesting and original plots that I'm just, every time I saw it, 3 episodes, and I just haven't seen anything like it. It's just interesting in my opinion. And why I bring up Black Mirror is the 3 that I watched so far involve artificial intelligence in some fashion. So it's really taking over, I think, a lot of ideas, a lot of what people are writing about, a lot of what we think about, and what's coming maybe. Hopefully not if it's anything like the Black Mirror episodes. I don't know if I said the date for this one, but it's May 20th. And it's about a woman who has an AI therapist. And it's about how she met someone and it's their first year of relationship, how much they are looking at their connection and self-awareness and working on themselves in terms of therapy. But I think the kicker for this one is that it's about an AI therapist. So I was gonna check this one out and see how much maybe it's like the Black Mirror episodes. Next one is called The Last Ferry Out. It's also on May 20th and it's by Andrea Bartz. It's a twisty thriller. A young woman is on a tropical paradise trip to the place where her fiance died and begins to suspect the death was no accident. After he dies, she needs to see the place where he had his accident. And now she's starting to think it wasn't an accident. One of the locals claims they know what really happened and they kind of suck her into, hopefully not a trap, but who knows, suck her into finding out and investigating what really happened with her fiance. It was one of the books when I first read the description. We had done a video about the most anticipated books. I want to say we did about 10 to 15 for the whole year of 2025 of what we knew was coming out. And this one made, I think we did 15 because I remember this being like number 15 of what I was anticipating. So I definitely want to read it. I feel like it is one of those twisty thrillers I get lost in, and I look forward to reading that one May 20th, but I do have the electronic ARC for that. So hopefully I'll get a chance to read it before it comes out. The next one sounded really different, and I think I do tend to pick, I always want twisty thrillers, and then I like things that just seem very original and nothing like I've read before. This one is called The Second Chance by Charlotte Butterfield. It also comes out May 20th. A psychic predicts Nell's death date, and she accepts this fate, embracing adventure and traveling the world, choosing fun over any commitment. And when the fateful day arrives, Nell feels ready and posts 5 excruciatingly honest confessions to her sister, parents, and past loves, knowing she won't be around. It's so interesting, and obviously I haven't read the book yet, that she would accept it so wholeheartedly. There must be something that convinces her that this psychic is right. And then she checks herself into a hotel and waits. And I just have this feeling that that death date may not come true, and then she has to deal with the repercussions of confessing everything that she confesses. But it sounded like a really interesting idea. So I'm definitely going to be reading that one. Okay, May 20th again. This one is called I Want You More by Swan Huntley. And it's a new fiction paperback. And a large reason why I wanted to read this is the quote. And it's by Graham Moore, who's a screenwriter for The Imitation Game, which I did think was a random person unless they know the author. But this is how he described it. A deliciously twisted love story that sneakily upends your expectations at every turn. A candy apple with a razor blade hidden inside. And it's about Zara Pines reeling from her father's death and accepts a ghostwriting gig for celebrity chef Jane Bailey. Dark and twisty novel about fame, lies, and obsession will make even the most open-hearted reader question those around them. Like I said, that quote is mostly what sucked me into wanting to read that. So hopefully, that has burned me in the past, but hopefully it lives up to what the book actually is. We'll see.
So the next book I want to talk about, it comes out on May 27th, and it's not a genre that I usually read. This is a middle grade book. Okay, this book is called Shadow Wars. It's book 1 of the Secret War series. So I usually don't read middle grade books. I understand y'all probably don't either. But this book just sounded fun, and sometimes if I'm feeling slumpy or I read a book that took a lot of brain power to read, I want to switch it up and I want to read something that's very fast and very fun. And sometimes I think middle grade books could do that. So I wanted to put this on the list. I did get an ARC. It is very short. Probably just read it in one sitting if you just really want to, you know, like I said, get out of a slump or have something quick and fun to read, or just feel like you're progressing, you know, like you like, yeah, I want to get a book read, you know, and you feel like you need that extra little bit of confidence to keep moving forward and reading more fantastic books. I think this could be a good consideration. I am going to read just the very first little snippet. From the #1 New York Times bestselling author Sherilyn Kenyon comes a middle grade fantasy adventure unlike any other, where demons rub shoulders with gods and one boy must learn to control his power before it's too late. So it sounded interesting. I was able to get the ARC. I will probably do an ARC review on it because I think I can get it read before this comes out at the end of May. And if it's a fun read, I will let you all know.
The next one I'm on the fence with, because as much as I really want to read Stephen King, I've only read 2. And for the longest time, the only one I had read is Eye of the Dragon, and it wasn't really any of his horror. I haven't always been drawn to horror because I thought it was really graphic, and I thought Stephen King was considered really graphic, and I think sometimes he can be. The other book I read last year, because I've been wanting to read another Stephen King, was Salem's Lot, and I did really enjoy that one. So I do want to read more, but the new one that he has coming out on May 27th, it's called Never Flinch, and it follows a character that he has written about in other books of his, and it's Holly Gibney. So I looked it up, and it sounds like she's in several. She's in Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch, and then The Outsider, If It Bleeds, and finally he wrote a whole book on this character and called it Holly. And this one, Never Flinch, she's a part of it. I don't think she's the main, just the main character. It sounded like it was a whole bunch of characters, but she's the character that you have seen from his other books. And how it was described is intertwining narratives, one about a killer on a diabolical revenge mission, and another about a vigilante targeting a feminist celebrity speaker. It sounded interesting, but I don't know if I just go and read this one, is it not going to be as good as if I had read all the other ones? And I think that's one of the daunting things with Stephen King, is you always feel he has so many books that seem to be interconnected. At least I would say his last 20-ish years of his books. So I don't know if I'll end up reading this, if I need to read the other ones, if it will just be better if I read the other ones, because I definitely don't have time to read 6 other Stephen King books when there's so much on my plate. So I don't know, I'm on the fence. I thought it was worth mentioning him anyway, because I'm sure there are other people out there that really love Stephen King, may be looking forward to it, or may not have realized he has a new one coming out. We'll see. I'll see if I will read it. I do want to read another one of his, if not in the summer, probably in the fall around Halloween, but I have so many of his that I want to read. All right, we're into June, and June 1st, I just found out about this recently, Frida McFadden has a newish book. Why I say newish is it's actually a short story. Short story, I think me and Amanda both agree. Both of us have a hard time with short stories. For me, I think it's because I always end up wanting more. And I just think novels are where I like to read. I keep falling victim to short stories. Jodi Picoult has a bunch of short stories that she did with Amazon, and that's what this one is with, is Amazon. And it's called Death Row, and it comes out June 1st, and it's part of a short story series called Alibis, and I believe they're on Kindle. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get them on Audible or not. I think I saw the next one that I'm going to be going over, which is part of the Alibi series. Pretty sure I saw on Audible already as a pre-order, but this one I'm not sure. Even Frida herself on her Facebook page wasn't sure if it was going to be on Audible. But the short description about this one is, with all hope of an appeal fading away, the fate of a condemned murderess takes a shocking turn in a breathtaking short story. And I did read a little more. I feel like it would spoil it if I give the rest of the description. Sometimes reading descriptions, I feel like gives away everything. And I would rather go into it not knowing much. And I'll probably forget by the time June 1st rolls around anyway, and I get into this story. I'm pretty sure me and Amanda are gonna do either at the end of May, early June, another Frida vlog because we have some of her previous books that we haven't read yet. I am chomping at the bit to read more Frida, but once we read the final ones that we haven't read yet, that's gonna be it. So I don't know if we're gonna do 1 or 2 with that short story. I'm sure the short story is gonna be like 100 or 200 pages max. And I can't wait till she announces another new one that I'm sure is going to be coming for the fall. Even though The Tenant is coming out in May, which I already mentioned, I guess I just want more Frida. I'm addicted to how she does plot twists. I just very much enjoy reading her books. So that short story is coming out June 1st, I believe with Kindle, potentially with Audible. The next one is part of the same series, and it's another author that I really love to read. It's Sally Hepworth, and I don't think they do the same pub dates for this short story series because for this one it said June 2nd, and it's called The Ex-Wives Club. And I've read The Good Sister, Darling Girls, The Soulmate, The Younger Wife, and Uncharted Waters by her. And I still have books that I need to read by her as well. But I really enjoy her writing, even if some of those weren't as good as some of her other ones. This is about a CEO who owns a bunch of restaurants, and he's a serial philanderer, and he turns up, how they put it, stone cold dead. He has a trio of exes, and they actually meet, I think it said, every Friday night. So I guess they're friends with each other. They all have alibis, but they all have motive as well. And it said this is sharp-witted and suspenseful. And as I said, part of the alibi series that Frida is too. I gotta see what the other ones are because maybe I might want to read the others. As I said, I don't know how I'm going to feel about the short story. I always end up wanting more. And so it's not very fulfilling to read these short stories. And I know Amanda feels the same way. But maybe if I read a bunch together, it'll be different. It'll be like a book. I don't know. We'll see. But that one comes out June 2nd.
On June 3rd, I have another book that's a little bit outside of my favorite genres, and it's a cozy fantasy called A Fellowship of Librarians and Dragons. You guys, look how freaking cute. Look how freaking cute this cover is. Look at that little dragon in the egg. Got some little muffins and pastries down there. Got some tea or coffee. Oh my gosh, so cute. Books, cinnamon buns. I mean, come on, you guys. Look at this cover. This is the second book in a at least trilogy. I know there's at least 3 books, and it's a cozy fantasy, which I surprisingly have never read. Not something I've really been interested in, but I plan on reading a cozy fantasy in the near future, and I'm hoping to get book 1 of the series and this one read before the release date so I could possibly do an ARC video on it if I enjoy it. So we'll see, but I did want to bring this to your attention. If you like a cozy fantasy, or if you're in the mood for a cozy fantasy, then I think that this could be one you should put on your radar.
The next one reminds me again of Black Mirror. I just have it on the brain because I just watched 3 episodes, I think. This one's called Notes on Infinity by Austin Taylor. It comes out June 3rd. And it's Harvard students Zoe and Jack, and they find themselves propelled into the intoxicating biotech startup world when they announce they discovered the cure for aging. Completely plot sounded like Black Mirror. And I think someone ends up accusing them of something. Something ends up denting their world, and however they feel they have cured aging. It maybe involves AI, I don't know. But that one sounded interesting, so I have it on my list to read for June. The next one I've been trying to get an ARC for. I don't think I have the electronic ARC. I have signed up several times now for Goodreads, and it's called Dear Future Me by Deborah O'Connor. It's also June 3rd, and it's a new thriller paperback. For decades, high school teacher Mr. Dandler has been asking his students to write letters to their future selves. 20 years later, he posts their letters back to them so that they can read about what they wrote about 20 years ago. When the class of 2003 receives their letters, they are shocked to find that the envelopes contain contents that threaten to expose secrets about the decades-old death of one of their classmates. A classmate jumps to her death after receiving this letter. Miranda's best friend, I guess I didn't mark that Miranda was the one who jumped to her death, but her best friend decides to investigate to see what was going on and what validity there is to whatever happened with and who was involved with the death of this classmate back in 2003. It just sounds like, even though it's a thriller plot that's not too different from some of the thrillers that I read, something keeps drawing me to it. And I really want to read this one. So hopefully if I don't win an ARC, I will be purchasing this in some fashion in June. The next is also June 3rd, and it's called So Happy Together by Olivia Worley. It's a new thriller hardcover. Unrelentingly twisty and utterly compelling. I mean, right there, they're really selling this book. Unputdownable, and for fans of Riley Sager. Obviously that drew me into this. Jane likes Colin very much. After 5 dates, Colin breaks things off with Jane. She's convinced she's going to get him back. She knows she will. Then Colin starts to date Zoe. Jane sneaks into his apartment and makes a shocking discovery and ensnares all of them into what she discovers. So sounds almost like a soap opera, sort of, with someone going psycho. But something about it spoke to me, and those thrillers get me often. I plan on reading that one in June. The next one is also June 3rd, and me and Amanda will be reading and doing a vlog on this one this month. I think we're vlogging and not just doing an ARC review. I gotta check with her about that. But Julie Clark, Ghostwriter, and I like the cover alone. The premise is one I feel I have seen with several different books in some fashion, but ghostwriting seems to be one of those plot devices I keep coming back to and they keep writing books about. Olivia is the protagonist in this one. She's a struggling ghostwriter, and she is tasked to do her dad's story that he wants to write. And he is a famous horror writer. And his past, his brother had been murdered when he was a teenager. He was always looked at as potentially being the one who killed his brother. And now he wants to finally tell his story, and his daughter will be ghostwriting it. So it's a really interesting plot. We will have either an ARC review or a vlog for this coming out either end of April or early May. So keep an eye out for that one. Next one is also on June 3rd, and I don't read YA that often. It's not a genre I tend to gravitate towards, but there are some notable ones, Hunger Games being one of them, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and the follow-up Ruthless Vows. So there are ones that end up grabbing me and I really enjoy. The next one coming out June 3rd is Best of All Worlds by Kenneth Opel. And the description, I didn't know it was YA at first, but the description sucked me in because it's like a sci-fi thriller. It's about Xavier Oakes, and he's not thrilled to have to go to a cabin in the woods with his father and pregnant new wife, Nia. One morning, once they're there, they wake up and the house they're staying in isn't where it was before. It's like it's been lifted and placed somewhere else. Again, I almost feel like it's a Black Mirror episode. When they explore, they find they're inside of a dome. And I also think Stephen King had a book that was something like that, I thought. And they are trapped. No one else is around. And then it says 3 years later, I couldn't believe when it said they spend that much time in this dome. 3 years later, another family arrives and they try and figure out what is going on. They all have theories as to what is happening. I am very intrigued as to what is happening in that book. So I definitely want to check that one out. The next one I actually just started the electronic ARC for. It's called Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Also June 3rd. I've read all but I think one of hers, which I have and is on a shelf behind me on TBR Road over there. And this one is set against the backdrop of the 1980s space shuttle program. Joan Goodwin is obsessed with the stars and wants to go to space. She's selected and trains at Houston's Johnson Space Center. She meets a group of new astronauts as they prepare for their flights. Joan begins to question everything she thinks she knows about her place in the observable universe. Then in December of 1984, one particular mission changes everything in an instant. And that's all I know. It's all I want to know because I want to find out in the book. But I just started it. I can't speak to it because I think, got one chapter in. But I have both enjoyed her books a lot, and there have been a couple that have been a little softer, but I am excited to read that. I plan on doing an ARC review for it, so keep an eye out for that.
On June 10th, I have Witch Roads by Kate Elliott. This book seems a little more in the comfortable epic fantasy genre of mine. This is book one of a duology, so we know it's a duology. It says, when an arrogant prince gets stuck in Orlander Halt as part of a brutal political intrigue, component and sunny deputy courier Ellen, once a child slave meant to shield Noberben from the poisonous Paul, is assigned to guide him through the hills to reach his destination. When she warns him not to enter the haunted spires, he doesn't heed her advice, and the man who emerges from the towers isn't the same man who entered. The journey that follows is fraught with danger. Can a group taught to ignore and despise the lower classes survive with a mere deputy courier as their guide? So it seems like a lot of adventure, mostly epic fantasy, possibly a little romance brewing between the prince and the courier. So we'll see how this one works out. I've never read this author before, so I'm kind of going into this book a little hesitant, not sure what to expect, but I also kind of like going into books blind and not knowing what to expect because you can be so pleasantly surprised sometimes.
The next one I'm on the fence of. I almost just took it off completely, but the reason why I didn't is because I really enjoyed a book by this author. It's actually one of my favorite books of all time. And though I have not been able to read another book by this author, I tried a couple times and it just wasn't reeling me in. The one that I have read, it's one of my favorites, just makes me always pay attention when there's a new book coming out. So it's Wally Lamb is the author. The book that I absolutely loved by Wally Lamb is She's Come Undone. I read it in the late 90s. This one is called River is Waiting and comes out June 10th. It's about a man who's struggling with new fatherhood, losing his job, a secret addiction, and it throws his marriage into trouble. And then he causes a tragedy that puts him into prison. And then it sounds like the rest of the book is about how he goes into prison and what that looks like and feels like for him, what he is observing, and it also tells about his life and who sticks with him and treats him like a human being, I guess, and who is flawed and who continues to love him beyond those flaws. So it's very much a humanistic story, just like She's Come Undone. All of his books are humanistic stories, but some of them I really tried, and he's very prolific. Some of his books are very long and like between 600 to 800 pages. And they just haven't always pulled me in. And I put down a couple years ago that I really wanted to read. And I keep thinking I'm going to go back to him. And I just haven't. And I don't know if this one is going to be one that pulls me in. So it's definitely on the fence. But I wanted to mention him. And you can comment if you guys have ever read Wally Lamb or if there's one that I should definitely retry after She's Come Undone. Who knows, maybe I'll try the new one that's coming out. I am a mood reader, so it may be one of those ones that I see at a bookstore, pick up, read a couple paragraphs and decide, yes, I'm going to try this one, but we'll see.
The second book on June 10th, and there are 3 books for me on June 10th, but the second book is a author that I have read and loved, and that is With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. This is a novel set in the 1960s, I believe. Let me look. Yeah, 1942. So no, not the 60s, but all the way back in 1942. One Train, No Stops, A Deadly Game of Survival and Revenge by Riley Sager. That's all you need to know. That's all I need to know. I can't wait to read this book. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I know Jen's going to talk about it, so we will just see what happens with this one, but so excited for this book, and always highly anticipate Riley Sager's books coming out.
I have a feeling for the next one that Amanda and I will probably be doing an ARC review in May, most likely. I know we talked about having this next one on our list at some point, but it comes out June 10th, so that's quickly coming up. But it's With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. We've already done a couple Riley Sager vlogs, and I very much enjoy his writing. And this time, he doesn't do anything that's current day. He is going back in time to the 1940s. So in 1942, 6 people destroyed Anna Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. Under false pretenses, Anna has lured those responsible for her family's downfall onto a luxury train from Philly to Chicago. Her goal? Confront the people who've wronged her. Anna's plan is derailed by murder. And that is not my own pun. That was in the description, they punned. Almost sounds like an Agatha Christie book, so we'll see how this goes. I don't know if it'll feel the same since it's taking place in the 1940s, but I'm sure, keep an eye out, because I'm sure we're going to be doing a vlog.
My third and final book on June 10th is Realm of Thieves by Katrina Hawley. Again, an author I've never read before, I don't know much about, but it says 2 thieves vie for dominance in the illegal dragon egg trade, putting both their lives and hearts on the line. The scorching romantasy from New York Times bestselling author Karina Haley. Just sounds good. It's obviously a romantasy, which I have been reading a lot of lately and have been enjoying, and I am always looking for good fantasy romantasy books, so I think I want to put this one on the list and give it a try. Also, like, stealing dragon eggs, like, that sounds super fun.
The next one I have as an electronic ARC, and it comes out June 10th. It's Plays Well with Others by Lauren Miracle, and it was described as a delicious domestic thriller that explores neighborhood secrets, dangerous friendships, and truths too dark to be acknowledged. I did read a little bit more about it. I'm not going to say everything that happens in the description for this, but there is something about domestic thrillers that I always like, and I think it's because it's such a realistic setting. This one definitely intrigued me, and I will be reading it.
The next book coming out on June 17th is also a little bit out of my comfort zone, kind of. And that is A Far Better Thing by H.G. Perry. Now, this is a little bit out of my comfort zone because the setting is a time during the French Revolution. I'm not a real big historical reader. So this book is also a little bit out of my comfort zone because it is a subgenre of fantasy that combines science fiction and fantasy together. So it's sort of a blend of genres of the science fiction and fantasy genre. Gideon the Ninth, I think, is probably the most popular book or series that is also considered this subgenre. I've not read it, but when I looked up the subgenre to see more about what it entails, that book, Gideon the Ninth, came up a whole lot. And it is a book I have seen people talk about on BookTube before. So I do think this should be kind of the similar genre as that book.
June 17th. We are up to June 17th. This one is a sequel to a book that I think is behind me. So the sequel to The Wren and the Holly Library by K.A. Lindy is called The Robin on the Oak Throne. I think originally, and I want to say Amanda read this recently and she didn't seem very impressed by it. And I read this after Games Gods Play, and I felt the characters and some of the premise were a little similar, and sometimes when that happens, I always feel like the one that you read second doesn't always feel it meets up to what you had read for the first one, because I loved Games Gods Play. Loved it. And the main character in this one was very similar because it's another thief, and it's another thief who meets up with a love interest that is not human. In this one, it's a warlock. The protagonist in here is called Kierce, She's a thief, and Graves is the warlock that she ends up running into. And when I read this, I did feel like, okay, I want to read the second one. Even though I didn't feel like it was as good as Games Gods Play, I still enjoyed it, and it's still a gorgeous book. And the next one is purple and I can just have it on the screen and stop showing this one, but I feel like it's going to be a gorgeous book. I'll have it has a collectible for right next to this one. These two are back at it, and Graves has a job for her, and it includes one of the most powerful monsters in existence, his mortal enemy, the Oak King. And there's something that he wants her to get from the Oak King. And I definitely want to read it. I haven't gotten an ARC, not even an electronic ARC. I don't even know if they're doing ARCs. I wish they were, because I would like to read this next. Even if I didn't really like it as much as Games Gods Play, I still want to read it. So, but doubtful I'll get an ARC. I'll just be picking up the gorgeous hardcover when it comes out. And if we don't, maybe we'll do a review now that she read the first one, if she's interested. Amanda, let me know. Once we decide, you may see a vlog from us, or you'll just hear me talk about it in our quarterly review.
June 17th, we have Someone Knows by Vi Keelan. And this is another thriller. Obviously, you can kind of tell by looking at the cover. This is a thriller, and a thriller author I've not read before. And I haven't read a lot of thrillers lately, so I'm really in the mood to start picking up some thrillers here and there. This one kind of got my attention. It says, an English professor's deadly past comes back to haunt her in this chilling and sexy thriller from #1 New York Times bestselling author Vi Keelan. Interesting. Sounds interesting. I've never heard of a thriller being described as sexy, so we'll see what that happens with that. Also, y'all, look how full my TBR jar is getting. Like, I feel like Jen and I need to read more of these because I need more room. I need to clear some of these out and get more room in here.
Next one is one I feel like out of everything I've talked about or will talk about, I am probably the most excited for. And I didn't really realize I was until when I was making notes and checking things for doing this video, how much I really want to read this book. I do have the electronic ARC, so I may be reading that very soon, and I'll do an ARC review. It's called The Poppy Fields, and it's new speculative fiction by Nikki Ehrlich. Comes out June 17th. And she also wrote The Measure, which I have read, and it's also speculative fiction, and was just so, again, like a Black Mirror episode. It was just so unique, and it was about one morning everyone wakes up, and on their doorstep is a box with a thread in it. And everyone comes to realize that the thread, once you measure it, tells you how much longer you have to live. So some people, once everyone realizes what it is, some people don't even open their boxes because they don't want to know. They just want to live their life. And it becomes a whole thing. It's a very interesting story. So this one is a story of healing, self-discovery, forgiveness, and found friendship that will appeal to readers of Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which is also one of my favorite books. I love that book so much. And that also, I think, was the reason when I was taking notes and reading things that it kind of pulled me in even more wanting me to read this. It's about a unique new research center, home of an experimental and controversial treatment that allows those suffering from the heartache of loss to sleep through the pain. After they awaken from the prolonged slumber, they are healed, with shadowy side effects from this process. And it doesn't say what those side effects are, so that's interesting. 4 very different strangers and one little dog are headed on an unexpected road trip to the mystical destination. And to me, as soon as I read that, and the first time I read the description and found out about this book, I didn't make this connection. But in the classic film Wizard of Oz, and I believe it's in the book too, because I remember last year reading the book as well, the poppies are part of the plot point in Wizard of Oz, where the characters end up falling asleep because of the effects. And when she said 4 strangers and a little dog, and though it doesn't say it, I'm like, okay, is this some kind of riff on Wizard of Oz? It doesn't say it, but I mean, it's obvious that it has to be. And to me, the whole plot feels like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's a movie that I was obsessed with back when it came out. So Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind meets Wizard of Oz. And I just found that just interesting. Like, that's just like 2 different films I never would have thought would be like meshed together. In the book, which you see on the screen, it's going to have sprayed edges. So even though I have the electronic arc, as long as I love it, and God, I have so much amped up anticipation and expectation for this, that's not a good sign. Sometimes no matter how much you try and like lower those expectations, it ends up, I think, ruining it, because it not everything can live up to high expectations. I'm hoping that I go into it with a more realistic mindset, but if I like it, I'm gonna obviously buy one of those very beautiful editions of this book. But yeah, I'm super excited about this one, if you can't tell. I especially got super excited when I was writing it down the notes. So I'm probably gonna be reading that shortly.
Also on June 17th, y'all, I have another thriller. I mean, who am I? This is Don't Open Your Eyes by Liv Constantine, and I have absolutely loved these authors' books. This is a duo of sisters that write under the name of Liv Constantine, and I think it's a combination or something of their 2 names, but anyways, I love all of their books, and I'm so excited for this one to come out. This is a thriller about a woman who has these dreams, and she dreams about her future. And then she wakes up and her futuristic dreams start coming true as she's living her life. So that sounds super fun and intriguing. This is probably, I don't know, like Riley Sager is like probably, it's a tie between the Riley Sager book and this book for my most anticipated thriller in this video, because I really anticipating both of those books coming out and want to read them both so bad. So really excited for this one.
Also on June 17th is a book called Don't Open Your Eyes by Liv Constantine. I have yet to read Liv Constantine. And it's a pen name of sisters Lynn and Valerie Constantine, and they have thrillers that I feel are right up my alley, but for whatever reason, I haven't had a chance to read them yet. This one is about a seemingly happy woman. Her name is Annabelle, and she's in a happy marriage. She has a great career, 2 wonderful daughters. I feel like that description is always at the beginning of some of these books, where people have these like idyllic lives and then something just like rams right into it. She starts having dreams, and they are disturbing and seem to be foretelling danger. At first, she dismisses them, thinks they're just nightmares, and then details start to show up in real life from her dreams, and she's realizing she's having visions. And she struggles with if this is something she can actually change, or is it just her fate? Really interesting concept. This might be the first one that I actually read, Liv Constantine. I don't feel like I've read anything like that I can remember, but definitely interested in that one. So I have a feeling I will be reading it. Right, I just have a couple more. The next one is a romance, and it's called Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston, also coming out June 17th. A hit-making songwriter, Joni Lark, gets writer's block and goes home to North Carolina to try and find inspiration. But she only ends up finding pain and loneliness when she gets home, because things have changed and she's not connecting with those that she had normally been connecting with. She becomes overcome by a melody, though, that gets stuck in her brain, and a voice. So she's hearing things. And the voice is alluring and seems to be connected to a guy that shows up suddenly in town. I mean, if you really listen to that plot, it almost sounds like she's hallucinating because she goes through so much pain, and is any of this real? But it kind of is a par for the course for Ashley Poston. I feel like she almost does like speculative romance, which I know isn't necessarily a genre, but I feel like she's creating it. Unless there's other authors out there, you can tell me that do something like that too, but I feel like it's becoming speculative romance. Can these two work together through this telepathic connection? And the way they described them, because I didn't write everything down that was in the description, but it sounds like it's not grumpy sunshine because they almost both sound really grumpy, but where he doesn't like the connection, he doesn't want to have anything to do with her, and they end up, I think, working together, and I'm sure end up falling in love, unless she really is losing her mind and that's what the plot point is. I don't know. But I thought it sounded interesting. I have liked her books. I know the one that I like the most from her, I'm forgetting. I don't remember the name of the book that I really liked by her, but I'll put it on the screen. There was another book that I read by her that I wasn't as enamored with. That one is a novel love story that I read back in February. But I really did like the one that I can't for the life of me remember, but I know it has a yellow cover. Memory is not doing me any favors at the moment.
The last book that I have for this video comes out June 24th, and it's surprisingly also a book that is not your standard or my standard genre of fantasy or romantasy. I mean, I guess technically it could be romantasy, but I would classify it more as a dark romance, and that is One Dark Kiss by Rebecca Zanetti. This is book 2 of a series, and the first book in the series is One Cursed Rose. It's a funny story about that book because that book was purely a cover buy for me. I found a special edition at Barnes & Noble. It had very pretty sprayed edges. It actually has reversible dust jacket, and that's the only book I've ever owned that has a reversible dust jacket. So I purely just bought it because I liked the way it looked, and I'm like, One Cursed Rose. Okay, that sounds fun. That sounds like a little fairy tale-esque romance. So I'll just get it. And then I recently started reading that book on a whim. I just randomly picked it up. I was just in the mood, I guess, to see what it was about. And I read that book in like one day. It was over 2 days, but within maybe like a 24 or 30 hour period. I just couldn't put the book down. It was so very different than anything that I read. It was dark romance. It is, I would say it's like an urban fantasy setting, which is surprising to me because I don't usually like urban fantasy, but it's an urban fantasy dark romance. That's what I would say it is. And it was spicy, and I don't like spicy really, but for some reason, the idea of this book and the male main character, I think, was just intriguing to me in One Cursed Rose. So I cannot wait to continue the series in One Dark Kiss. Like I said, these are dark romances, so these characters are usually bad characters. Alexi, I don't know how you're supposed to say his name. This is the male. He has spent 7 years in a maximum security prison, every moment consumed by the need for revenge. And Rosalie, who is obviously the woman in the book, is his attorney. So it's sort of a bad boy girl, good girl kind of scenario, which was very much like One Cursed Rose. This says dark romantasy twist on Snow White. So One Cursed Rose was a dark romantasy twist on Beauty and the Beast. And this one is a dark romantasy twist on Snow White. So I don't know. Everything about this book tells me I'm not gonna like it, but I loved One Cursed Rose, so maybe I don't know. Maybe I just don't know what I like, or maybe it just depends on my mood. But either way, really excited to read this one. This is one of those books that if I had it right now, I would probably pick it up and start reading it right now.
June 24th is a shout out to Lisa Jewell's new hardcover thriller is coming out, Don't Let Him In. And though Amanda was not feeling this book, and we did a vlog where we read Parents Weekend and Lisa Jewell's Don't Let Him In, I ended up really loving it. It's one of those books that plot points from this book keep sticking with me. And I had gotten a physical ARC after I already read it as an electronic ARC, and I ended up giving it to a couple people at work, and it's getting passed around, and it's one of those books you just want to talk about once you realize the ending, and it's very interesting. I definitely would recommend it. If you have read Lisa Jewell, you most likely will want to read it because I think her books are kind of like that. But if you like slower paced thrillers but so it is like a slow burn thriller, but it has one of the last 20% of it has one of those endings that not only is it like a plot twist, it's just one of those that you need to like, you want to talk it out with somebody. So we've been talking about it at work. There's other things I want to say about it, but I feel like it would almost ruin it because I feel like giving too much information sometimes is not helpful. So if you want to see the reaction, I read it in that vlog and you can see all my thoughts on it as well. And Amanda, she probably already tagged it since we talked about Alex Finley, but feel free to click on it. I have a feeling it's going to do really well. I am on my last book that I am most anticipating for June. It's June 24th. It's called Smile for the Cameras by Miranda Smith. And I feel like this book reminds me of a couple other book plots. So as soon as you hear what I have to say, it's going to sound, I think, familiar. So 20 years ago, Ella Winters was the it girl. She was the final survivor in the cult classic slasher Grad Night. But the real horror is what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. Something terrible that Ella and her co-stars agreed never to speak of again. After that movie wraps and they do all their promotion, Ella disappears, seemingly to take care of her mother. After her mother's passing, she comes back and returns to the silver screen, and the cast and crew of Grad Night are doing one of those reunion documentaries. The actors begin to meet the gruesome fates of the characters they originally played, falling victim to someone dressed as the Grad Night villain. It's clear their secret is out. Can the final girl survive one last nightmare? It reminds me, there's a lot of final girl books. I haven't read all of them because Riley Sager has one and I haven't read it, but I did read Final Girl Support Club by Grady Hendrix, and I wasn't a big fan of that one. And then Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay is also one of those, like, it was about a cult horror movie. They also do like a reunion of who was involved in that movie, but I felt like there was something about that book I really didn't like. And I think there were a lot of divided camps as to, was it really good? Or, some people really enjoyed that book, but so I don't know how much I'm really going to like it. I figure I am going to try because it is different and maybe it'll just hit me differently than the other ones. We'll see. That's all I got for May and June. There were definitely ones I sifted through. I didn't include everything that's either on my want to read Goodreads or that I have shelved on Edelweiss because there are some that I'm not completely sure I was going to still read. I tried to pick the ones that I feel I was most likely going to read in May and June. What books are you excited for in May and June? Are they any of the ones that we talked about? Is there something we didn't talk about that you feel we should have talked about that we should be interested in? Let us know. I would love to hear more thoughts about books that are coming out. Thank you for listening to all the books that we're excited about. Keep an eye out for more ARC reviews, more vlogs that I'm sure we're going to be doing on all the books that we're excited about. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time.